Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I am Bobby Hurricane Spencer, and today I want to teach you something about primary and secondary chords. And what would help you understand this is if you have some very basic knowledge of the keyboard. Also, what would be helpful in lieu of that would be if you can play a little bit of guitar. But basically, I'm going to break it down pretty simple for you. Now, I'm going to also show you how some of these chords are, how they're used, and a little bit in some early rock and roll and rhythm and blues and some jazz. So let's start out and look at the keyboard. And I want you to notice that the keyboard is organized all the way up and down in 2 black keys, 3 black keys, 2 black keys, 3 black keys, 2, 3, all the way up and down. Any keyboard, that's the way it's organized. To find C, which is what we're going to be working with the white keys. But everything you learn in these white keys applies to every key that a musician could play in or sing in even. And so we're going to start out with the 2 black keys. And just to the left of the black key on the left is a C. And that's what we're going to start with. And I'm going to show you how to build chords, basic triads. The word triad means 3. So these are 3-note chords. So we're going to take a C, build a C chord. We're going to skip the next key, which is D, and hit the E. And then we're going to skip the next key and hit the G. So we got C, E, G, which is a basic C chord. And that's going to be, I'm not going to give you the heavy stuff like, well, this is the tonic. I'm not going to talk that language yet, but in a future lesson we'll get into that. But with professional musicians as they perform, they use the numbers. So this is the 1 chord. Now we're going to move over 1 note to the D. And we're going to skip a note and hit the F, skip a note, hit the A. Now we've just built a D minor triad, which of course is a chord. Now we're going to move over, hit the E, skip a note. Now we have an E minor. That's the 3, because 1, 2, 3. We just count up the notes. C is 1, D is 2, E is 3. Now we're going to move up and do the same thing with 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 is F. Keep the cane shape, skip a note, skip a note. So we got F, A, C. And that's the 4 chord, because it's 1, 2, 3, 4 steps up. And you count the C, everything. Now we're going to move up to the next note on 5 is G. That's the 5 chord. And then we're going to move up 1 more step and do the same procedure. And we're skipping a note, so skipping a note, and that's A minor, and that's on the 6th step. So remember, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we're going to go up to 7. We just left 6. Skip a note. Now this is a diminished chord. It's a B diminished chord. And that's on the 7th step. Now we move 1 more up, we're 8, which is actually C again. We've arrived back at C, except it's 8 notes away. It's an octave, but it's the same chord. Here it is an octave up, here we go back where we started. And we have it. Now, let's talk about the primary, the most important chords in this key, in any key. And they're the chord based on the C chord or the 1. Those numbers are important to remember, the 1 chord. Now let's count up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's build that F chord. It's the 4 chord. Do the same thing. We hit the F, skip a note, hit the next note, skip a note, hit the next one. So we got F, A, C. That's our 4 chord. And then we're going to move up 1 more step. We're going to go to the G, which is the 5th step. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to build our chord, our triad. triad, 3 notes, right? So those are the primary chords in any key, in the key of C at this point. We're in the key of C, all white keys. But the same pattern exists in every key. So now we have the 1 chord, the 4 chord, F. And you've heard this kind of sound. You've heard this. It's a doo-wop. And all the early rock and roll, Chuck Berry, Elvis Presley, we could go on and on. Most of their songs were primarily based out of those chords. Now, the secondary chords. Okay, let's go to the secondary chords. Now, they're called secondary because they're substitutes for the primary. Sometimes you get tired of hearing, see, all the primary chords are major chords. In a future lesson, we'll discuss why a chord is major and why it's minor, etc. But right now, let's just get this down. Now, all the primary chords are major. There's a certain color to the major, and there's another color to minor. Minor sometimes is associated with more of a sad sound. So we start on the second step, the D, skip a note, skip a note. So we have D, F, A. That's our 2 chord. Remember, it's the second step up. Remember, 1, 2. And at a future lesson, I'll give you all the fancy terminology. But right now, let's just keep it basic, because this is what most musicians call it. They rely on the numbers. It's simpler. So that's D minor. Now let's move over to the third step. E, skip a note, G, B. It's our E minor. Right? Okay. And now I'm going to go and start at C and count up 6 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now let's build a triad, a 3-note chord on there. When we hit the A, we skip a note, and we skip a note. So that's A minor. That's on the 6th step. So you got 2, starting here on the D. You got 3, and you got 6. Okay? Now, those are your primary and secondary chords. I showed you a little earlier how the 1, 4, and 5, the 1, 4, was used in the early doo-wop. Now, what happened in that is the secondary chords, your D minor, your E minor, and your A minor, are used to substitute. Now, for instance, when the ear got tired of hearing the F, well, the D minor does the same thing. It has the same function. So you start getting, you see. So let's kind of put it in a chord progression. Let's start off with this C. Let's go to the D. And let's go to the G. So you had that, and then they started, well, another very used chord progression is related to the doo-wop thing, and I'll show you this tune here. I'm going to skip up here. Earth angel, earth angel, will you be mine, my darling dear, love you all the time. I'm just a fool in love, with you. So what did you do there? You got your 1, went up to your 6, then you went to your 4, then you went to your 5. And that progression is used endlessly in 1,000 tunes. But as time went by, not very much time, people wanted to hear you, so you start off, you go with your 1, go to your 6, your A minor. Instead of now going to your F, we're going to go down to the 2. That's going to take the place of the 4, the F. Then we go back to the G, our 5. So you're going 1, 6, 2, 5. So that's some of the popular stuff, and there's an endless amount of rhythm and blues tunes, pop, and rock that use that progression. Now we're going to talk about how you apply this information to one of the most basic jazz progressions, the 2, 5, 1. So remember your 2 here, second step up, and your 5 into your 1. It's what is very prevalent in jazz. I mean, it's incredibly prevalent. So what happens is in the jazz, we start with the 2. Now when we do it with just the basic triad, a 3-note chord, it doesn't sound quite like jazz. So we're going to have to skip another note and add this. And what we have now on the 2 is a D minor 7. The top note is a 7th, because if you count 1, 2, starting on the D, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you have a D minor 7. Then you go to your 5, your G, add a 7, and then then you have it. All right, we're going to wrap it up for now. We're going to continue with this in a later lesson. Just wanted to let you know you learned what the primary and secondary chords were, and you learned about how they fit into music, into real music. And in the next installment on this, we'll get into more detail about that. I'm Bobby Hurricane Spencer signing off. Thank you.